Hey dude, you're not going to believe all this fresh stuff I just learned about Hedera, or H-bar as most people call it. Man, it got me so pumped that I actually went out and bought some H-bar today. I'm serious. I put real money in because of everything that's popping up right now. Let me sit down with you and tell you the whole thing from start to finish, just like we're hanging out and I'm spilling all the tea. I won't rush it. I'll explain every little detail so you can really feel why this feels so big to me. So first, there's this breaking news that's got everyone talking. Hedera showed up at the World Economic Forum in Switzerland. Yeah, that super fancy meeting where all the important people from around the world get together. You could clearly see Hedera's name and logo right there alongside some massive companies, Ripple, MasterCard, Microsoft, and even Pfizer. It wasn't hidden in a corner or anything. It was out in the open with the big boys. Someone on X, this guy called X Finance Bull, made a really interesting post about it. He said we're basically watching the formation of what he calls a utility cartel. He means that the networks that actually work well, the ones with real speed, real partners, and real closeness to regulators, aren't just doing their own thing anymore. They're starting to organize together. He pointed at that picture from Davos and said it's more than just a bunch of logos thrown together. To him, it's the beginning of the infrastructure cartel that's going to shape the next phase of the whole market. He broke it down like this. You've got Ripple with their payment corridors and their RLUSD stablecoin rails. Then there's HBAR's enterprise-grade finality. That means when something happens on Hedera, it's really final and super reliable for big companies. Algorand brings its tokenization engine, Cardano has its interoperability roadmap, and there are other projects like Constellations with their data-driven validation layer. When all these pieces come together, they can unlock what he called sovereign-grade throughput, programmable liquidity, and real on-chain trust. He made it clear this isn't just an alliance of random coins. No, it's an alliance of entire systems, and he reminded everyone that history shows when the foundational layers start lining up like this, the rest of the market usually follows along. Early stories and hype can move prices up and down for a while, but when the real infrastructure aligns, that's what actually moves the economy. That post really stuck with me because it made the whole Davos appearance feel way more important than just another conference photo. People are also talking a lot about how Hedera fits into the current payment world. You know how everyone groups FedNow and real-time payments together? Well, they actually solve pretty different problems. FedNow is the public infrastructure run inside the United States. It gives instant settlement. The money moves and it's final in just seconds, and it works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Real-time payments offer similar speed, but they run on a private network owned by banks, so they don't reach as many places. Then you have SWIFT, which is the old system everyone still uses for international stuff. SWIFT doesn't actually move money, and it just sends messages telling banks to move money. And because of that, actual settlement still takes hours or even days. The interesting shift that's happening now is how Hedera can connect all these different rails. It adds interoperability, programmability, and verifiable settlement without having to throw away the systems that already exist. Hedera isn't trying to become a rail like FedNow or real-time payments. Instead, it's being used by service providers that plug into those US instant payment networks, and especially into credit unions. Basically, Hedera acts like a programmable and interoperable layer that sits on top of the existing systems. Let me explain that part slowly because it's important. There's a company called Drop that's built on Hedera. They're officially listed in the FedNow Service Provider Showcase as a technology provider for instant payments. They use Hedera's low-cost features, especially for merchant payments and really small micropayments. What they do is integrate FedNow and the clearinghouse's RTP, that's real-time payments. Because of this, users can pay directly from their regular bank accounts in real time. It feels seamless. Then there's BankSocial. This one is also built on Hedera, and it's ISO 2022 certified, which is a big standard that traditional banks use. BankSocial is on the official FedNow service provider list, and they're already live with instant payment transactions. Their Rivia Payments network connects directly to FedNow and real-time payments, and it links up with thousands of US credit unions. So Hedera is getting real rails into traditional deposit accounts through these connections. Here's exactly how Hedera fits into the picture without replacing anything. FedNow and RTP handle the actual dollar settlement between banks. That part stays on the traditional side. Hedera sits above that as the programmable financial layer. This is where tokens, stablecoins, and digital receipts can move around and settle with finality and public accountability that everyone can see and trust. A service provider can route a payment like this. The actual money value moves from one bank account to another over the FedNow or real-time payment rails. At the same time, the state receipts and any tokenized assets get recorded and automated through smart contracts on Hedera. Right now, there's no direct settlement happening on the Federal Reserve or the clearinghouse networks running on Hedera itself. But companies like Drop and BankSocial are already using Hedera plus these real-time systems through APIs. These connections are still in the early stages, but they show something really valuable. Hedera can work in a regulatory-friendly way inside real U.S. payment systems. It's especially useful for micropayments, credit union banking, and the future of tokenized and programmable payment use cases. This whole setup makes Hedera feel like the missing smart layer that traditional finance needs as everything moves toward instant and programmable money. On top of all that, Hedera has been quietly hitting new adoption highs lately. The number of active accounts on the network is surging. Daily new users have gone up 3 times compared to the previous quarter. That means way more people are finding out about Hedera, signing up, and actually using it. At the same time, institutions are starting to use Hedera to push their own infrastructure into this new digital age of instant payments and programmability. It really feels like real momentum is building toward the financial system of tomorrow. You can see decentralized but still enterprise-grade infrastructure actually working in real life. A lot of people have been commenting on the Davos appearance and how all these different big companies and projects are coming together in one place with Hedera right there among them. It gives this feeling that something bigger is being built behind the scenes. There's even more. I came across this take from a channel called All in Real All in Crypto. They were talking about a recent paper from JP Morgan on tokenization. JP Morgan is one of the biggest banks in the world, so when they write something, people pay attention. In this paper titled Tokenization of Money Market Funds, they specifically and only mention Hedera Hashgraph. They use it as a clear example of a public permissioned DLT, that's distributed ledger technology, that can help with tokenizing a huge market. In the United States alone, money market funds are worth over $8 trillion now. The paper explains how these tokenized versions would work differently from the traditional ones and gives a simple explanation of what blockchain and DLT even are. But the really interesting part is under the section about public permissioned DLTs. They describe this type of network as one that is open to all users who want to interact with it, but it is operated by a select group of nodes. These nodes are run by a governing council made up of some of the largest institutions in the world, companies like Google, IBM, and others. The council members are chosen through a process that needs approval from the existing nodes. They say this kind of network offers similar potential to scale as fully public networks, but it also has added security and regulatory controls. And right there, Hedera Hashgraph is the only example they specifically name. They didn't mention any other project in that category, just Hedera. When a giant like JP Morgan singles out Hedera this clearly in a serious report about tokenizing trillions of dollars, it feels like a really strong signal. I also listened to what Dr. Lehman Baird from the Hedera team had to say. He's one of the brilliant minds who helped create Hedera, so his thoughts carry a lot of weight. He was sharing his views on network forking and why having a stable ledger is one of the most important things for real-world adoption. He started by asking what stability really means in this space. Forking is always in the headlines these days. You see it everywhere. Ledgers splitting, people fighting over which version is the real one. Sometimes a handful of developers who were leading one project suddenly split into 2 smaller groups, each leading their own version. Then everyone starts arguing which one is the original, which one should we trust, what if there are rollbacks? If the chain splits, do you follow the one that rolled back or the one that didn't? All of this creates a lot of uncertainty, especially for big institutions that need to know things won't suddenly change. Dr. Baird explained that the word fork actually has multiple meanings, more than 3 even, but he focused on the main ones people talk about. The first and most common meaning is when the software that runs on the nodes, the full nodes validators or whatever they're called, gets upgraded. Every time the mainnet nodes update their software, it's technically called a fork, either a soft fork or a hard fork depending on how compatible it is with older versions. But this is completely normal. Every piece of software in the world needs updates. This kind of fork happens all the time and nobody makes big headlines about it because it's boring and expected. The second kind of fork is when someone takes the software code and creates an entirely new ledger from scratch. They start with their own Genesis block, their own initial state, and build something new. This also happens quite often, but again, it doesn't usually create the dramatic headlines. He was basically pointing out that Hedera is built for real institutional use. It doesn't need to be copied and forked over and over, or have extra layers added just to fix or improve the main network. Hedera comes as a full, complete package right from the beginning. It has very cheap fees, really fast transaction speeds, and everything big companies need for serious use cases. The governing council, which includes some very impressive names, helps keep everything stable and trusted. That's one of the reasons I started buying H-bar. At around 10 cents, even a small amount like $1,000 gets you almost 10,000 H-bar. If I put in 3 or 4,000 bucks, I end up with 30 or 40,000 H-bar. Holding that kind of bag long term feels like it could be really beneficial over the next several years. I'm also starting to buy more Flare, but Hedera is moving up fast in my mind. When I think about the networks that are actually going to be heavily used in the future, Hedera feels like it belongs in the top 5 or top 10. You've got Solana, Ethereum, the XRP ledger for sure, and then Hedera, Cardano, Chainlink, all these pieces that will probably work together in different ways. A lot of people online are calling Hedera a deep value play that almost nobody is talking about right now. If you want something that could do 100x, you have to look for what's structurally undervalued. Hedera isn't trending all over crypto Twitter, but it's quietly building a regulated, enterprise-grade, carbon-negative network that lines up perfectly with where real adoption in the world is heading. Most other chains are chasing retail traders and hype volume. Hedera is going after governments, banks, and big corporations instead. Someone put it nicely. If H-bar reaches $2, it probably means it's winning important infrastructure deals. At $10, it might be capturing real settlement value and volume on a global scale. $20 could be the point when the whole world finally realizes that Web3 rails aren't going to run on hype. They're going to run on throughput, compliance, and trust. Every asset in crypto eventually gets its moment in the spotlight, but only a few actually earn it through real utility. Hedera seems to be playing a long game of chess while most projects are still playing checkers. If you're early, you want to be early with real conviction. It helps to zoom out and look at the bigger picture before the price suddenly wakes up when the crowd notices. They even showed some rough math on what the market cap would need to be for different price levels. It makes you think. People talk about the XRP ledger possibly reaching crazy high prices like $500 or even $1,000. At $1,000 per XRP, you're looking at something like a $55 trillion market cap. That's enormous. So if someone believes that's possible, then you have to ask what Hedera could do with its own circulating supply. Even if Hedera only captures a fraction of that kind of scale, the price per H-bar could still move a lot higher. That's why I've decided to take Hedera much more seriously now. I haven't spent a ton of time buying it in the past, but I'm changing that. I'd love to build up to something like 1,000,000 H-bar one day if it keeps showing this kind of quiet progress. The Hedera team has a busy week coming up, and there are going to be more updates and clips from them. I'll definitely be watching and sharing whatever comes out. Look, I know I'm not the biggest Hedera expert yet. I've spent way more time learning about XRP, but I'm going to keep studying and understanding it better. I just wanted to show you honestly what I'm actually doing with my own money and why I made this investment right now. All this news about Davos, the JP Morgan mention, the FedNow integrations, the growing user numbers, and the stable enterprise design just clicked for me. It feels like Hedera has a huge role to play in the future of tokenizing financial markets. The infrastructure they're building seems built for the long haul, not just for quick hype. That's the real reason I bought some H-bar today and why I'm excited to keep learning more. There you go, a full, natural, long-form storytelling version that keeps every single fact exactly as it was in the original. It's casual, like two friends talking for a long time, but nothing important was cut or changed. If you want me to make any small tweaks to the tone or expand any specific part even more, just tell me. Fast.